We're going to make this wood wire spool into a nice looking outdoor patio table. As you can tell, it's a pretty good size. It's just under 4 feet wide. So what you want to do is determine which side you want as the top, which I've been checking these out. I think this will actually be the bottom, this side. And you also want to determine the height. I'm going to cut it down to where it's not as high because this would be kind of tall for a table. Almost 33 inches. So I got this patio set with the chairs and everything on Craigslist. So I'm going to use the chairs with this table I'm going to make. So I'm going to go off the height of this patio table, which is, you can see it's like right at 29. I'm going to have to shorten the wire spool by about 3 inches. So here's the wire spool facing upright. So again, it's right at 33 inches, a little less than 33. So you take your overall height, which is just shy of 33 inches. You want to make your table at 29 inches, so you want to subtract. So it's going to be just under 4 inches, maybe like 3 7/8. So what we're going to do is take it apart. I'm going to cut that amount off of each one of these, and then we're going to reattach the spool together, and it'll be the right height. So before you take it apart, you want to determine what kind of base you want. So I want to make mine to where it has kind of some feet coming out. So I'm actually going to cut these sections out. So you got to determine the exact dead center. You can see the words kind of run almost centered. So I had to come over a little bit. So that's basically the center line there. So it kind of runs along this seam. So then you determine your square. So you want to lay that parallel to that seam. So there's your center line. So I'm not getting real technical with this. What I did was I just found I wanted just a standard radius, so I took a garbage can lid, and that's how I drew the radius of the table feet. Okay, so then I'm going to have feet about from here to here, and then a cutout. So it's going to be 4 feet. Okay, so this is where it gets a little tough. Regular jigsaw is not going to be long enough to reach through 2 boards there, so I'm going to be using a sawzall with a pretty aggressive blade. Hopefully it works out. Here's the bottom view of my legs. This is actually going to be the bottom of the table. Another thing you're going to want to do is, most likely your wire spool's been rolled around on construction sites. Heavy wire on it. Got a lot of nicks and a lot of damage, a lot of splinter. So you want to sand it down real good. I'm going to use a belt sander with some 80 grit. Should take it down pretty good. I'm thinking I might even take a router and knock this down. One of the cool things about using a wire spool is every one of them is unique. They all have their own nicks and dings and markings, and that's what makes them cool. So I'm not trying to make it perfect, but I am going to take some of the rough surface down with a belt sander. So if you're not real familiar with a belt sander, you definitely want to move along with the grain. And like I said, you want to watch out for nail heads, screw heads, staples, things like that. Is clean it up a little bit. A lot of times people are just going to stain them and put like a poly finish on them, some sort of a clear coat. I'm actually going to use an epoxy. So, you know, like here, this is all rough. I'm going to try to clean it up a little bit. Not trying to make it look perfect, just clean it up. You know, I'm going to sand the top. You might want to sand it with a belt sander. So one thing that'll tear your belt up is nails, heads, staples. Like right here's a staple. Let's take that out. There's another one. Inches high, which is about an inch taller than my patio table. So you can see it's currently 33 inches. So what we're going to do is disassemble the table by taking these rods out. Right here, there's 6 of them. And we get it apart, we're going to take these out and just simply cut them down 3 inches. And when we put it back together, it'll be 30 inches tall. A couple of boards, since I cut these big circles out, a couple of the boards are real loose now, so I'm just going to take some screws and re-secure them in there. I want everything to be tight. Now that they're all cut the right length, I'm going to stain them 3 different shades of stain. You can see the color right here. Make a door in the middle of the spool so I can put a propane tank in the middle. So I'm going to have a tabletop fire bowl. So the propane tank is, the opening should be about 13, 14 inches. And then you got to match the radius for the frame of the door. So I got this pretty cool tool my wife got me. It can shape it to anything. So I got the radius there. You want to do the inside. So next I transfer the radius onto this 2x6, just a standard pine 2x6. So I trace the radius along here, and this is, again, this is the inside of the spool, the middle of the spool. So the radius is now on there. And I want this frame to be 1.5 inches thick. So I just grabbed a piece of 2x3, just as a template, and I marked along here. So it's going to be 1.5 inches thick all the way across. This doesn't have to be as accurate of a radius as this. This is what the door is going to be mounted to, the exterior part here. So now I'm going to cut it out. If you don't want to do a tabletop fire bowl, just totally skip over this part. You don't need a door in the middle of your spool. That's the only reason I'm doing this. As you can see, I got 4 of these cut out now. 2 of them are going to be to hold the spool together above and below where the door is going to be cut out. The other 2 are going to actually hold the door pieces together. Frame. Now, because of the height of the propane tank, I'd only use about 7 inches for framing on top and bottom, so like 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches up here. So the door is going to have to be close to 18 inches, which is the height of a propane tank. So I'm really counting on being able to take the tank and kind of put it in on an angle and then stand it up kind of like you do with your barbecue grill. So I'm not real critical about getting the 18-inch door. I might give myself a little more framing here, like 4 inches. So anyway, The next step, I'm going to frame the doors, which will be 2 more of these. So one, say around here, another one up here, and then I'm going to probably add this one next, the very top frame, which holds the top part of the spool together, above where the door is going to be. So the framing for the door, the bottom ones are going to hold it all together. So the door frame has got to be one board in. So the door frame is actually going to be, I'm going to have to make some cuts like that, and over here, right here. This thing was held together with these long rods, which you can see they're not threaded the whole way. So in order to shorten it to that 30-inch height, the table height, I needed something with more thread. So I bought all thread, 36-inch pieces. So when I put it back together, I can just cut the excess off. Now for the tricky part, getting this thing back together. What I didn't realize was, with the framing of the door, you can see this one's going to be in the way of the framing, plus in order to have the width to get a propane tank in here, I'm going to have to put it back together without one of these rods. Now I'm getting ready to cut out the door. And if you remember, the door was framed out. I had 2 curved boards on each end. You can actually see one there. So that one is actually screwed to this board, which is going to hold the door frame together. And then the door itself had one that stops about here. So I'm going to actually cut in between those 2 boards. In hindsight, I should have marked this out prior to putting the spool together, but first one I've ever done, so it's a learning process. So anyway, I'm going to cut the door along here, along here. So again, the door frame board is going underneath here and along here. I'm going to put the hinges on prior to cutting the door so it doesn't fall apart. And something else I learned was the hinge is straight, the spool is curved, so I had to put the hinge in a vise with a rubber mallet and kind of tweak it, get some radius in it. So I'm getting ready to mount these and then cut the door open. here's the door all cut out on hinges. You really don't have to put some sort of a stop here because the wood is on like a wedge shape. It kind of stops itself. But I probably will put some sort of a latch on there. The other thing is you might want to sand these edges down from the saw, and I'll probably touch up some stain. But again, hindsight 2020, you could probably do this whole door without it being installed in the spool. Probably easier. It's a learning process, so hopefully you'll get some good pointers out of this. Sounds like an old haunted house. So after you tighten everything down, you get all the nuts tightened down. You need to cut them off so they're not sticking out beyond the wood. So you can use a cut-off tool like this, which works really well. Just trim it tight to the top of the nut like that. I'm going to actually use a grinder with a cut-off wheel. A little bit quicker to have one. Clear coat on this. You can either leave it like this, you can put a polyurethane finish on it, but I'm actually going to do a 2-part epoxy. Okay, first coat's on, so hopefully you can see these bubbles. This stuff is really thick, but bubbles come up. So what you do is you take just your average plumbing torch, nothing special about it, and hold it a few inches away, and the heat will actually stop the bubbles. I don't know if you can see that. See some over here. And you just kind of wave it over the bubbles. And will all pop. So you want to go over the whole thing. This is while it's wet too. It hasn't had time to start to set up. finished product. You can see that the epoxy's not perfect, but I kept telling myself it's a wire spool. It's okay. You can keep going and get a completely perfect top if you want to, but the main reason was just to get it where I could wipe it off after we use it like a picnic table. And here's the door. So I can put a propane tank in there because I'm going to make a fire bowl for the top of it. Pretty cool. I like it.